I found out my father had died from a Facebook post. Not a phone call. Not a message. Not even a pathetic two-word text. Just a photo. A blurry picture of a church captioned, "Rest in peace, Daniel. You were loved by so many." The timestamp was from 2 hours ago. 2 hours. Which meant by the time I saw it, the funeral was already happening. And I hadn't even known he was gone. My hand shook so badly I nearly dropped my phone. I scrolled faster, desperate, searching through comments. Cousins, old neighbors, people I hadn't spoken to in years, all sharing memories. But not me. No one had called. No one had told me. And when I finally grabbed my keys and drove like a maniac across town, skidding into the cemetery parking lot, the service was already ending. People were streaming out, adjusting sunglasses, dabbing at fake tears. I spotted my mother, my brother, and even my father's sister. People I'd grown up with, people who had my number, people who knew. I ran toward them, the gravel crunching under my heels, my throat already burning with words I hadn't planned. But then my brother saw me. And I'll never forget what he did. He stepped in front of me, blocking the path, and said in a low voice that made my stomach drop, "You shouldn't be here. This is family only." Family only. As if I wasn't his daughter. As if the man in the casket wasn't my father. As if blood had somehow been rewritten without me. I froze, staring at him, waiting for the punchline. But he didn't laugh. He didn't soften. Behind him, my mother's face hardened into something like disgust. "Please leave," she said. Cold. Final. I thought I had misheard. My father had been in the ground for less than an hour, and instead of mourning together, they were cutting me out literally at his grave. I didn't make a scene. I didn't scream or beg. I just stood there with every nerve in my body screaming, while they turned away from me. And then, as if on cue, the rest of the family followed. Avoiding my eyes, whispering, acting like I was a stranger who had crashed a private event. So I left. But I didn't leave empty-handed. Because silence cuts deeper than any fight. And I had a letter already forming in my head. A letter that would tear their carefully constructed story apart. And 3 days later, when that letter reached them, my phone lit up with 53 missed calls. The drive home after the cemetery felt unreal. Like I was floating outside my own body. I don't even remember traffic lights or turns, or the way my hands gripped the wheel hard enough to ache. All I remember is the silence in my chest, the kind that comes after an explosion, when the ringing hasn't stopped but the world already looks different. I didn't cry. Not then. Instead, I kept hearing his voice in my head. My father. Not my brother's cold dismissal or my mother's cruelty, but his. The way he used to call me kiddo. The way he'd laugh too loudly at sitcom reruns. The way he always smelled faintly of motor oil and peppermint gum. And then the sickening realization. I'd never hear it again. He had died and they had stolen even the chance to say goodbye. By the time I reached my apartment, the grief had hardened into something sharper. Anger. But not the kind you throw like a punch, the kind you sharpen like a knife. I sat at my desk, pulled out a blank sheet of paper and started writing. No outline. No plan. Just words pouring out faster than I could shape them. Dad is gone. You didn't tell me. You didn't want me there. But you don't get to erase me. You don't get to decide that I wasn't his daughter. You don't get to bury me with him. I wrote until the page ripped under my pen. Then I grabbed another. And another. My handwriting grew messier with each sheet. The letters jagged, angry, trembling. It wasn't even grief anymore, it was indictment. Every moment they had twisted the story of our family. Every lie they had told me to my face. Every time I had been told to be the bigger person. While my brother was coddled and my mother played queen. I wrote about the birthdays I wasn't invited to. The way they only called when they needed money. The way my father had quietly slipped me letters over the years, apologizing for not standing up for me, telling me he was proud in ways he never dared to say out loud. I still had those letters. Stacked in a drawer. Proof. His voice even in ink. By the time I stopped there were 8 pages in front of me. My hands cramped. My face burned. And I realized this wasn't just a private purge. This wasn't just for me. They had humiliated me in public. At my father's grave. So I decided the letter would be public too. And 3 days later it was. I didn't send the letter to just my mother and brother. I sent it to the entire family group chat. The one that had been oddly quiet since the funeral. The one where, just a week earlier, they'd all been posting crying emojis under a photo of my father in his old recliner. I attached scans of Dad's old handwritten letters too. Proof that, no matter what they said, I was his daughter. That he loved me even if they had tried to rewrite that truth. Then I pressed send. For a few seconds, nothing. Just the little delivered checkmark mocking me. Then the typing bubbles began. First from my cousin Aaron. Wait, what? You weren't at the funeral? Why? Then from Aunt Marlene. This isn't the place for drama. Then my brother, quick, defensive, predictable. Stop lying. You chose not to be there. Don't rewrite history. I stared at the screen, heart thundering, as if the words could physically bruise me. And then the first bomb dropped. One of Dad's oldest friends, someone who had known me since I was a toddler, chimed in. I saw her at the cemetery. She was turned away. By you, Rob. The group chat exploded. Dozens of messages all at once. Questions. Accusations. People demanding answers. My mother finally entered the fray with her signature mix of manipulation and denial. She always exaggerates. She wasn't welcome because she brings chaos. Daniel wanted peace. Peace. That word made me laugh out loud in my empty apartment. Peace had never existed in that house. Only control, only silence, only careful choreography around my mother's moods. So I typed one line. Just one. If Dad didn't want me there, explain these letters. Explain why he wrote in his own hand that he regretted how you treated me. And then I attached a photo. My father's scrawled handwriting. His words. I wish I had protected you more. You didn't deserve the way they treated you. You'll always be my daughter, no matter what they say. Silence. For a full 5 minutes, not a single reply. Which, in my family, was louder than screaming. Then finally my phone lit up with a call. My brother. I didn't answer. A second later, my mother. I let it ring. Then 3 more cousins. Then my aunt. By the end of the night, I had 27 missed calls. By the next morning, 53. And still not one apology. Just desperation. Just panic. Because the truth wasn't just out. It was written in Dad's own words. And that was something they couldn't bury. If my family had one talent, it was rewriting history. They didn't apologize. They didn't admit fault. Instead, they did what they'd always done. They spun a new story. By noon the next day, screenshots started trickling in. Cousins forwarding posts. Neighbors texting me awkwardly. My mother and brother had gone public. A long Facebook post from my mother, complete with a photo of her holding a bouquet at the graveside. Grieving is hard enough without lies. My daughter has always been troubled. She chose not to attend her father's funeral, and now she is spreading stories to hurt the family. Please respect our privacy during this difficult time. Underneath, comments. Oh, I'm so sorry, you don't deserve this. Stay strong, prayers for you. She's just jealous, ignore her. My stomach turned. Then came Rob's contribution. Shorter, nastier, dripping with smug self-righteousness. She couldn't handle Dad's death, so now she's making it about herself. Some people will do anything for attention. And of course, the family choir sang in harmony. Thumbs up. Hearts. Condolences. I wanted to scream. But instead I remembered something. The cemetery had cameras. Small, discreet, mounted near the gate. And I had walked right past one when Rob locked me, when my mother told me to leave. My fingers shook as I pulled up the cemetery's website. I didn't know if the footage was accessible, but I knew how to ask. I'd worked in administration before. I knew the right words. Requesting footage. Family dispute. Potential legal matter. Within 3 hours I had the file. There it was. Crystal clear. Me arriving. Running across the gravel. Rob stepping in front of me. My mother pointing back toward the parking lot. The exact moment I turned away, my shoulders collapsing in defeat. No audio. But no need. The image spoke louder than words. That night I uploaded the clip. Not to Facebook. Not to my profile. To the same family group chat where they tried to bury me. No commentary. Just the video. And one sentence. This is what really happened. I pressed send. And then for the first time since the funeral I slept. I woke up to chaos. The family chat was on fire. Dozens of unread messages, piling on top of each other. My phone vibrating like it was trying to leap off the nightstand. At first, just stunned reactions. Wait, what? I can't believe this. Rob, explain yourself. Then came the fighting. Aunt Marlene demanded to know why my mother lied. Uncle Steve, who rarely spoke unless there was beer involved, accused me of editing the footage. As if I had access to Hollywood-level CGI on a Tuesday night. And then, like clockwork, my mother's reply. Out of context. You don't know the whole story. But here's the thing about video. It doesn't need context. It doesn't need persuasion. It doesn't need spin. Just is. The longer they stayed silent, the worse it looked. Rob tried next. She provoked us. You didn't see what happened before the video. Before the video? What, me breathing? Driving into the parking lot? It was laughable, except none of it was funny. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. The clip did the work. But the silence outside the group chat? That spoke even louder. Because by noon I got my first unexpected text. Not from a cousin. Not from a neighbor. From Dad's oldest sister, my Aunt Grace. We hadn't spoken in years. She lived 2 states away. The difficult one. The one everyone called bitter, because she had cut contact with the family decades ago. Her message was simple. I believe you. Call me. I stared at the screen for a long time, my heart pounding. Because suddenly it clicked. Maybe I wasn't the first to be erased. Maybe I was just the latest. Her voice was steady when she answered. Not warm, not overly emotional. Just steady, like she'd been waiting years to finally say what she said next. They did the same thing to me. I sat frozen, clutching the phone to my ear, my mouth dry. Grace told me she had been 24 the last time she spoke to my mother. My dad's younger sister, full of fire and opinions, too outspoken for a family that survived on secrets. She had called out my grandfather once, their father, for how he treated my grandmother. For the screaming matches, the hidden bottles, the bruises no one admitted to seeing. And instead of standing with her, the family turned. My mother most of all. They said I was lying, Grace said. That I was trying to ruin the family. They cut me out. I found out about my father's death the same way you found out about your dad's, secondhand, after the funeral. I wasn't invited either. I pressed a hand to my forehead. My stomach flipped. History repeating itself like some cruel inheritance. Grace sighed. I tried to reach Daniel once. Years ago. But your mother intercepted the letter. Told me never to contact him again. My throat tightened. He never knew? I don't think so, she said quietly. Or if he did, he wasn't strong enough to go against her. And suddenly, my father's secret letters to me made sense. The apologies, the guilt, the half-finished sentences where I could almost hear him choking on words he didn't dare say out loud. He had known. At least part of it. He just hadn't stopped it. I wanted to be angry with him. But mostly I was angry at how deep the pattern ran. It wasn't just me. It wasn't just Grace. This family had been feeding on silence for decades, punishing anyone who broke it. Listen, Grace said. They'll come for you harder now. That video embarrassed them. But you're not crazy. You're not wrong. And you're not alone. Her words lodged in me like a splinter, small, painful, but proof that something real existed under all the gaslighting. When we hung up, I sat staring at the wall, the buzzing of incoming texts and calls relentless. My mother. My brother. Cousins choosing sides. The whole machine grinding, desperate to bury me again. But this time I had something they couldn't erase. And I had someone in my corner who knew exactly what it felt like to be erased. Aunt Grace. The ghost they couldn't silence. Grace was right. They came for me harder. By the end of the week, my voicemail was full. Not condolences. Not apologies. Just demands. Rob's voice was the angriest. Take that video down. You're humiliating us. This isn't about you. Stop making it about you. Then my mother, layered in guilt and venom. Do you really want to tear this family apart? Do you think your father would want this? Delete it before more people see. We can fix this quietly. Quietly. Always that word. Always the weapon of choice. Silence was their currency and I was bankrupting them. But it didn't stop at calls. Posts started appearing on Facebook from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. Subtle at first. Sad how some people can't let the dead rest. Then sharper. There's always one bitter child trying to ruin things for everyone else. I wasn't tagged, but everyone knew who they meant. It was like watching my reputation get executed in real time. I told myself to ignore it, to let it burn out. But then a coworker pulled me aside at the office. She had seen one of the posts, shared by someone who lived in the same town. "They're talking about you, aren't they?" she asked gently. My stomach dropped. That was the moment I realized it wasn't just family anymore. They were trying to smear me outside to anyone who would listen. Rewrite me into a villain so thoroughly that even strangers would believe it. That night, my mother texted me directly. "If you don't stop, you'll regret it. Family is forever. Don't make yourself an enemy." And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel scared. I felt done. Done being erased. Done being blamed. Done carrying their secrets like unpaid rent. So I typed back just one line. "Family isn't a threat. Not anymore." Then I blocked her number. Blocked Rob. Blocked every cousin who had sided with them. The buzzing stopped. For the first time since the funeral, the silence in my apartment wasn't suffocating. It was clean. Clear. But deep down, I knew silence never lasted long in my family. And the next time it broke, it would be louder than ever. It took less than a week for their campaign to collapse. First, it looked like they were winning. My mother's post about my lies had racked up dozens of pity comments. People offering prayers, neighbors promising to ignore the drama. Rob chimed in with his usual tough guy act, making me sound like a hysterical outcast. But then the video spread. Someone, I still don't know who, forwarded it outside the family chat. Maybe an aunt who felt guilty, maybe one of my cousins who couldn't stand the hypocrisy anymore. Either way, it leaked. And once it hit Facebook, it couldn't be contained. I watched in real time as the narrative shifted. People who had blindly believed my mother suddenly had proof staring them in the face. There I was in black clothes running toward my father's funeral, only to be blocked. My brother's face cold, my mother's hand pointing me away like I was a stray dog. No words. No spin. Just the truth. The comments flipped overnight. "This is disgusting. How could you do that to your own daughter? She deserved to say goodbye. I don't care what history you think you have, this is cruel." By the next morning, my mother had turned her profile private. Rob deleted his post entirely, but the damage was done. And with the silence came something I hadn't expected. Messages. Lots of them. From people I hadn't spoken to in years. Old family friends. Distant cousins. Even neighbors from our childhood street. They weren't all kind. Some still hedged, trying to play both sides. But more than a few said the same thing. "We always wondered why you were treated differently. We saw it, even if no one said anything. I'm sorry we didn't speak up sooner." And then came the message that made my chest tighten. From Dad's coworker, a man I barely remembered, but who apparently sat next to him for 20 years. "He talked about you all the time. Said he wished things had been different. He wanted you there. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." I sat staring at that message until the words blurred. For the first time since the funeral, I cried. Not angry tears, not desperate ones, but grief, raw and unfiltered, finally able to surface. Because for once, the truth was louder than their lies. And for once it was on my side. I thought the exclusion was about control, about humiliation, about reminding me of my place. But the truth was darker. It came from Aunt Grace again, the one they'd erased long before me. Her voice was tight, almost shaking when she called late one night. "I didn't want to tell you this," she said. "But you need to know why they wanted you gone." My stomach dropped. "Why?" Grace took a breath. "Your father left something. A letter. To you." My pulse spiked. "What do you mean, a letter?" She explained. After Dad's health started failing, he'd asked his attorney to prepare a small envelope. Not part of the official will. Something personal. Something separate. And it was meant for me, only me. The attorney had tried to deliver it at the funeral reception, but I hadn't been there. Because they hadn't let me. Instead, my mother had intercepted it. I felt like the floor was tilting under me. What was in it? I whispered. Grace was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "I don't know. But if they kept it from you, it mattered. And it scared them. Suddenly everything clicked into place. The coldness at the grave. Rob's fury. My mother's desperation to rewrite the story. It wasn't just spite, it was protection. They weren't protecting Dad's memory. They were protecting themselves. Because whatever he wrote, it was meant to outlive him. And they couldn't risk me holding it in my hands. For the first time since the funeral, my grief shifted again. Into something sharper. Purpose. I wasn't just cut out of goodbye. I was cut out of the truth. And I wasn't going to let them bury it. I didn't stop until I had it in my hands. Took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of phone calls, legal pressure, and one very uncomfortable email chain with my father's attorney. At first, he claimed he couldn't release the letter without family approval. But when I reminded him that I was family, that I had proof of being deliberately excluded, and that a certain cemetery video could just as easily make its way into the public record, his tone shifted. And finally, one quiet afternoon, the envelope arrived. Thin. Handwritten. My name on the front, shaky but unmistakable. I sat at my kitchen table, the whole world silent around me, and opened it with trembling hands. Inside, just 2 pages. Not legalese. Not instructions. Just him. His words. Kiddo, if you're reading this, it means I didn't get to tell you in person. I'm sorry. I should have stood up for you more. I should have stopped them from making you the scapegoat. That's on me, and I'll regret it until my last breath. But know this, you were never the problem. You were the only light in that house. Don't let them tell you otherwise. Don't let them bury you with me. Live your life free from their control. That's all I want. That's all I ever wanted. I read it 3 times. The words blurred, my tears falling onto the ink, smudging his apology into proof. It wasn't money. It wasn't inheritance. It wasn't some grand secret confession. It was something far more powerful: validation. The one thing my family could never give me, the one thing they had tried so desperately to erase. And now I had it. In his own handwriting. That night I scanned the letter and dropped it in the family chat. No commentary. No rant. Just the pages and one sentence beneath them. This is what he wanted me to know. You can't erase it. The chat exploded, of course. Rob furious. My mother hysterical, claiming he was confused, ill, manipulated. But none of it mattered. Because the words weren't mine this time. They were his. And for once I didn't need to argue. I didn't need to scream. I didn't even need to stay. I blocked the chat. Deleted the numbers. Cleared the notifications. And then I sat in the quiet, the kind of quiet that doesn't suffocate but heals. For the first time in my life I felt free. Not because they were gone, but because I finally understood I never needed their version of family to begin with. My father's last words weren't chains. They were keys. And I intend to use them.